So Blaise Pascal came a couple hundred years before either Clifford or James did their own thinking. Um, he was raised by very strict Catholic parents, was a mathematical prodigy, um, and had kind of a loss of faith until age 31, when he had a mystical experience, um, which he explains in his which he explains as God intervening in his life and redevoted his life to God. In his later years, he produced a lot of philosophy. He also did a lot of philosophy of mathematics prior to this, but he did a lot of religious philosophy at this in his later years, like the last 2-3 years of his life. Well, not 2-3 years, the last 10 years of his life, right? He did a lot of religious philosophy. And his basic claim is that no amount of reason can bring a non-believer to faith in God, right? But he thinks that faith in God is ultimately important, right? Catholic, rediscovered God. That tends to be the standard, refrain from such people. So rather than try to prove God exists, as Aquinas and Aquinas and Anselm, for example, did, he tried to prove that it was better to believe than not to believe, right? So he tried to provide a rational justification for why one should have faith, rather than tie faith and reason together. And as he said, right, and this is something that is not really covered in either of Clifford's or James's models for the nature of belief, right? But it is something that's somewhat implied in them. What Pascal makes explicit is this idea that belief isn't, how do I put this? So belief isn't something that is fully rational, right? At least religious belief isn't, right? There is something of a disconnect between reason and faith. You can, faith is something that, you either have or you don't, but it is still something you can develop, right? So, as Pascal puts it, there are three classes of men, right? There are those who have found and serve God, which he claims are the happy and the wise, right? Those are people who, have faith and they see reason. They see reason in having faith. Then there are those who hunt for and seek God and serve God, but have not found Him. Right. So they're unhappy because they don't have faith. They don't have faith, but they're trying to get there. And then finally, there are those who have found God, but don't serve or don't care. Right? Those who are disillusioned, right? They've lost faith or never had it in the first place, right? They're unhappy and unwise. They don't serve God. As Pascal puts it, right, the universe is enormous and man utterly helpless and alone. Right? He was a deist, right? So we have this picture of a deist, right? He's not saying that God doesn't exist. He's saying that God doesn't care, right? He set up the universe in this way. It abides by these rules. Either you have faith and you go to heaven, or you don't and you go to hell, right? Now, if he exists, all right. But if he doesn't, so what, right? What's it matter? Well, as Pascal points out, okay, the nature of religious belief is faith-based, but you can reason your way to why it's better to try and believe, to try and develop the faith. And it's really rather straightforward, right? So assume that God does exist, right? So if God does exist and you have faith, what do you get? Infinite reward, right? You get infinite reward just for the mere act of having faith in the hereafter. But if he doesn't exist and you don't have faith, what do you get? Infinite loss, right? You eternal damnation, pain, suffering, all that jazz. And that's not a good thing, right? That's infinite loss, right? All right. And if God doesn't exist, what do you get? What do you get if you believe or disbelieve? Nothing, right? You don't get anything. Right? Nothing at all. Okay, so it's not true, right? What you might get out of it is living a life of servitude with purpose, right? Searching, you might find happiness, right, in living a life in devotion of God, even if he winds up not existing. So you get marginal gains for believing, but there's no real loss if you don't believe in the event that God doesn't exist. But here's the thing about probabilities, right? You've got these two choices. God exists, God doesn't exist. You can give them even odds, but half times nothing is still nothing. And half times infinity is still infinity, right? And it doesn't matter how small the probability of God's existence is, right? Or how large the probability of his non-existence is, right? Any way you weigh it can be 1/quadrillionth or 1/centillionth, right, of uh, of a chance that God exists, right? That's still going to put the odds at infinite gain or infinite loss for belief in him, right? And that absolutely minuscule, astronomically small chance that he does exist, it's still better to believe, right? So by reason, you can come to see that it's better to attempt to develop faith. Not better to, not necessarily that better to, not that it will grant you faith, but it's better to seek to have faith, right? To hunt for and serve God, right? That's a wise decision, right? Probabilities show you that. Um, Even if you never find him, at least you tried, right? It's the wise decision. So there's a couple of straightforward objections to this. Really quick. Well, what if you don't really believe? Pascal's response to this first objection is fake it till you make it, right? That's the whole point of this, right? Reason doesn't lead us to faith. Faith, belief in the divine is a belief based on faith. Whether it's belief in God or belief in the Tao or belief in, the nature of Shunyata, whatever. it is one of faith, because it's one that reason's not going to lead you to. It's one that reason might supplement once you have it, but it can't lead you there. So act as one of the faithful until you become one of the faithful, is what he says. The second objection is believe all that counts. Even if you talk to some Christians, they're going to, some Christians are going to say, no, it's not belief being all that counts. It's, there are certain beliefs that count. Belief in God's mere existence isn't enough. Belief that Christ, died on the cross for you isn't enough, right? And so on and so forth. Different sections of, or different sects of Christianity are going to say that different beliefs matter. Right? And some are even going to say that the acts matter as much, if not more, than the mere belief. Right? You can't have one without the other. Depends who you talk to. So this does raise the question, right? Is belief really all that matters? On his model, it seems to be the case, but to be fair, Pascal is an old school Roman Catholic, right? Talking old school, 500 years ago, old school. And that's a very different breed of Roman Catholic than even today's. So for him, it might have been that belief was all that mattered. Right? I mean, yes, living in service of God was a part of that, but that was to find the faith, right? And to have the faith. That wasn't to do with, whether or not that factored into the rewards that come from it. And the third objection is, why should I believe in the result if I don't believe in the proof? Right? Now, it's a sound logical proof, right? It's a sound mathematical proof. Right? No matter how small the probability of God's existence, the results speak for themselves. That's what it says. Right? But if I don't believe in the premises of the proof, that in, infinite reward or infinite loss, if God does exist, and if God does exist, if I dispute that, then the whole proof sort of falls apart. So why should I believe in the results of it? That's going to be sort of the ultimate defense of most atheists, is that, yeah, no, it's a good proof, but I don't accept the premises, so why should I accept the conclusion?